Welcome back to our Commitment 2026 coverage, primary election night here in California. I'm Edie Lambert.
And I'm Galston Dart, along with my anchor colleague Curtis Ming and our political director Ashley Savala. We are going to be here all night as the numbers start to come in, breaking down all of the results from all of the statewide races.
Let's start with right at the top, the governor's race, and we'd like to show you the top 4 candidates so far as the numbers are coming in. Again, some early numbers, but you can see Javier Becerra in the leads, followed the Democrat, followed by Republican Steve Hilton. And again, this follows what we've seen in the polling leading right up to this election.
Yeah. The Public Policy Institute of California and Berkeley IGS basically both hashed out this scenario. But again, it's early. There's a lot of votes to count. There are a lot of candidates on the ballot. I think when people opened up their ballot, they had no idea there were 60 people. And then you see Tom Steyer and Tom Steyer, the billionaire climate activist who is a Democrat, and Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco there trailing those two.
Yeah, Tom Steyer still, you know, really in that pack of the top 3. When you look at Chad Bianco's numbers, really quite considerably behind the top 3.
Yeah, there's another poll circulating by Emerson College that says that Javier Becerra and Tom Steyer, 2 Democrats, end up in the top 2 based on the share of voters. But some experts would say that the way that polling was done was flawed. But it's again something to watch tonight,
especially given that the threat had been to Republicans shutting out the Democrats early on in this election.
All right, we're going to move on to the AG's race right now, Attorney General, and you can see again with the early numbers coming in right now, Rob Bonta, the incumbent ahead of this Republican challenger there, Michael Gates. Ashley, thoughts? Yeah,
I mean, this was, I think, expected, and this is again who you will likely see on the November ballot in the general election. This was not a crowded field, essentially. I mean, these two were expected to move on in November.
I think we have another matchup that's similar to that. In the Secretary of State's race, you have the incumbent Shirley Weber, the leading Republican challenger Donald Wagner, and again, those two are expected to advance to November.
Yes, exactly.
All right, we're going to go live right now to Esteban Reynoso in Stanislaus County. He is following the vote as it's starting to come in there. Esteban, great to have you on. What do you see?
Yeah, hey there, guys. Well, right now, the polls are closed. As we know, at 8 o'clock, there were some people that tried to get it in here at 8:05, 8:10, but we know that there's that hard stop at 8 o'clock. That's the last chance that you have to bring in your ballot. And we did see those ballots get pulled from those boxes, get sealed, and taken to the back. Now, we also want to bring in Donna Linder one more time. So, Donna, thank you so much here with Stanislaus County. So this is kind of where it starts to get busy a little bit, if you will. Can you explain to us the next steps now that these ballots have been collected?
Yeah, so right now you've received results at 8 o'clock. Those are the vote-by-mail ballots that were counted prior to today. And then behind us here we have our board. These are our precincts. So we're waiting for our vote centers to close, pack up all the ballots that they have, the machines, and take them to our warehouse. And then from there, they'll be breaking their seals and bringing their drives in so that we can upload those results. So as they start coming from place to place, you'll see these colors change. So once it gets to purple, they're at the warehouse, and then it will go blue to yellow, and that means it's here and then uploaded. So we just watch tonight for these things to change, and then we'll give out more results as that happens.
Definitely. We're hoping that one of them changes as we're live on TV here, so you can actually see the process as it progresses. But we heard that there were about 60 plus places in Stanislaus County where people could vote. Is that correct? What number do you have?
No, we have 32 locations, and so they're spread out all over Stanislaus County. So it will take a while for those to come in because some of our locations are a half an hour away, and they still have to close, pack up, and then drive all the way in. So it does take a while this evening to get everything in.
Sure. And can you talk about the process after today? I mean, tomorrow is kind of where that counting really starts, right? Can you detail that process a little bit, just about when that first ballot starts being counted and we start seeing those results, how important it is for the people in the back who don't, pop up on the cameras to have them count the ballots and the votes?
Yes, so after today, we'll start back counting our vote by mail that came in today, and then we'll also receive some in the mail tomorrow. And then as time goes on for the next 7 days, as long as they're postmarked by Election Day. And so we'll be signature verifying, sorting those, flattening, and counting. We give results every Monday and Thursday. So as the weeks go on, we'll be counting all of those ballots. We expect anywhere from 20 to 40,000 today. So those will be what we're counting over the next few days.
Awesome. And something that we talked about a little before this day kind of got started was the voter turnout. I think you told me about 20%, 22% higher voter turnout than in previous elections. What are you seeing so far this year?
So we compare to the last statewide primary, so that would be 2022. And our vote by mail that we received up till today was trending about 25% more than what we saw in 2022.
Wow. So you guys are definitely busy this year, and that's a great sign. So Donna, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. We will continue to watch this board here as it starts to change colors, and we will continue to update us online and, of course, here live on TV. I'll send it back to the studio.
Esteban, thank you so much. We want to check in with District 8 because we now know one of the candidates who will be advancing to November, and that is the incumbent John Garamendi. He has been a local powerhouse in Democratic circles for a long time now. He's in his 8th term, seeking his 9th. You may also know him from the time that he served as California's lieutenant governor, and he's a powerful Democrat. He's on the House Armed Services Subcommittee on Readiness, speaks quite often in local media on a lot of foreign affairs issues and things like that. So again, John Garamendi will be advancing to the November election.
All right, we're going to go to the Mahan group where they are having a gathering, and he's starting to speak right now, and there he is up on the stage.
A better California. Because we can change the conversation. We can change the course of our future. We've proven it in San Jose and brought hope to California that change is possible. And we are just getting started. Thank you. Thank you all so much. So I can't finish here without taking a couple of more minutes to thank the people who poured everything into this campaign over the last 4 months. Of course, my wife Sylvia and our kids, and as my wife mentioned, my mother-in-law Abba, who came all the way from Miami for the last 2 months to help us hold it all together. Thank God. And my entire family, from my sister and brother-in-law and their kids to my sisters who across the country have been cheering us on every step of the way. Joe Green, as campaign chair, you worked relentlessly and you poured your heart and soul into making this campaign a success in every way, along with our other co-chairs. Thank you. Adrian Rafizadeh. You dropped everything to take on the Herculean task of managing a campaign that began merely 124 days before the election and had to make every single day count. Thank you. Tasha Dean, as my communications director, you literally put me on the map, not just statewide, but nationally, bringing attention to our progress in San Jose that will echo far beyond this race. Thank you. Thank you, and thanks to your talented team, Gisela, Noah, and Amanda. We all know how important money is in campaigns. And Shadeep Dutta, as finance director, you led our team to resources extraordinary for a first-time statewide candidate.
All right, we're listening to San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan talking and thanking his supporters right now, coming in with about 4.3% in the governor's race.
So right now, Tom Steyer, who put a lot of his own money into this campaign, is in about third place, about 20% right now. Cecil Hannibal is with the Steyer campaign in San Francisco. How are they feeling as these numbers are coming in?
Well, I can tell you they're optimistic right now. They feel they've done enough during this campaign to energize voters across the state of California. Like you mentioned, of course, Tom Steyer's poured over $200 million of his own money into this campaign. And tonight they believe right now that they're really focused on those undecided voters. They believe that will make a difference in this race. We just talked to his senior advisor, Anthony York, who believes that, yeah, those undecided voters will make a difference in all of this. They've just told us they believe this is a three-way race to those two spots come this November in the general election. But tonight, guys, people are eating, they're drinking, they're here waiting to see what happens now that the polls have closed and those votes are being tallied. So right now, guys, the energy in the room is optimistic, but we will have to wait and see what happens. They also believe that this race may not be decided tonight. They're saying the votes that come in late this evening, maybe even tomorrow or the rest of the week, could make a difference for Tom Steyer. But of course, guys, we will have to watch and see what happens. Something's back to you.
Absolutely, Cecil. Thanks for that, and we'll be coming back to you many times tonight. But right now, we're going to go over to Riverside County. Our Jason Marks is standing by right now, covering the Chad Bianco campaign in Riverside County, where he is currently sheriff and also, as we know, running for governor. Jason.
And Golson, this party started around 6:30 here in Eastvale, and it is what Chad Bianco is hoping is a victory party. Of course, we know that could be a long shot. According to the latest polls, he was running a distant fourth in this race, and as we've been talking about, the top two move on to the general election come the fall. I talked with Chad Bianco a little while ago and went up, and he was in a great mood. He said that he felt like he did all he could do to try to win the nod to move on to the next round. He said he felt good. He was going to wait to see what the votes started to come in. Now, as we remember, Bianco ran on a campaign of what he called common sense. He wants to change government, wants to change Sacramento, and he ran on a platform that he was running for all Californians. And one of the things he really wanted to do is talk about dial back spending. He believes that there's a lot of government waste, spending waste coming from Sacramento, and he felt like if he could be elected, he could sort of reel in that spending that he thought was just way too much. We did hear from Bianco a little while ago. He is here in this room. He's spending a lot of time on the outside of those doors, along with his communications teams as they're watching the results come in. But about a half an hour ago, he decided to take the mic, and here's what he had to say.
I made this decision for this one. For all of your kids, for all of your grandkids that do not have the opportunity that we had when we were this age in California. And it's not because of any of you, it's not because of any of your businesses, it's because of an absolute failed political agenda in California. And there is only one way to fix that, and that is to absolutely disrupt and destroy this agenda in Sacramento that is ruining our lives.
So the Bianco folks here, very optimistic that things could change here. The results are starting to come in, and he's still running a distant fourth, but they are optimistic that as these votes continue to come in, he will move up. They're really hoping that that's going to be the case. Like we said, we're going to continue to be here. Chad Bianco's here watching these results come in, guys. We'll see if it turns out to be a victory party after all. Now back to you.
All right, Jason, thanks for that. We're getting some new numbers in, and we're also seeing, not surprisingly, some of these candidates that are advancing.
Yeah, so far in 3 of the statewide races, the incumbents have already been basically, you can see a check mark there for Shirley Weber, the Secretary of State, the incumbent. She will be advancing to the November election. You can see the Republican challenger there, Donald Wagner, a strong showing as well with 40% of the vote at this point. Let's go ahead and bring in our analysts right now, if we can, to talk about some of these numbers. Is that, yeah. So as you're watching this, these are the expected results, right? Are you surprised to see them advance so early in the night?
I'm not surprised to see these individuals advance so early in the night. Obviously, it's going to take a while for the governor's race, and watching some interesting trends develop as votes come in between really the top 3 kind of candidates there. But, you know, these races, not so surprised. Lieutenant governor could be another interesting race to take a look at, but I don't know what you think, Steve.
Yeah, insurance commissioner is another interesting one. But, you know, we're going to see 50 to 58% of the votes tonight.
Right.
And especially the Democrats who held on to their ballots at the very end, that's going to really affect over the next couple of days those votes coming in. And I hope we don't hear these conspiracy theories about, oh, the votes that changed because the Democrats voted late. But that's just the way it is. It takes time.
Yeah, and there were a lot of reasons that people held on to their ballots. Let's take another quick look at a different race. I think we were going to show
We're going to put that on pause for just a second because we are going to go back to the governor's race. One of the top, we'll call them 6 candidates in the race, former LA Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, has conceded tonight. So we have some sound from him tonight. Okay. We'll try to get to what Mr. Villaraigosa had to say. Actually, we do have it, not the soundbite itself, but a quote. And this is from his remarks earlier tonight. Tonight didn't turn out the way we hoped, and I offer my congratulations to the winners and offer my best wishes for the road ahead. So I'm not stepping aside from the cause, only from the race. To everyone who gave this campaign a piece of their hope, hold on to it. California is worth fighting for, and I'm not done fighting. And as I read those words, if I can go back to Tim and Steve, if that is even possible, to just talk a little bit about just Villaraigosa getting into this race and the kind of Democrat he is, and the other types of Democrats we have now that seem to be rising to the top. There seems to be a difference.
Yeah, I mean, he tried to pick a moderate lane, and there really isn't much of one in the Democratic Party right now. He had a little bit of a base being mayor of Los Angeles, and he had experience being the Assembly Speaker, but he wasn't able to generate that enthusiasm. And when Becerra jumped into the race, that knocked out the Latino vote. They're bitter enemies, and so they went at it pretty hard early on. We counted them both out, and things have changed.
Well, I don't think that bad blood has improved any tonight. No. Yeah.
No, no, it hasn't. But, you know, Antonio Villaraigosa really is a politician of times gone by in California. And this may have been his swan song in terms of electoral politics. He certainly is not going away as somebody who's been an influencer in California, but he's had a remarkable career and someone who got along with Democrats, Republicans, was able to build bridges. And, you know, we have to kind of ask the question, as Steve said, is there a lane for that in the Democratic Party? Is there a lane for that in the Republican Party? I don't know that we have that right now.
It certainly feels like what's needed. And he did say he would only serve 1 term if he was elected governor, but that was not meant to be. All right, thanks to you both.
All right, we're going to switch gears and go to Anahita Jafari right now, who's at the Registrar of Voters in San Joaquin County. Looks like you're in some kind of big warehouse, and I'm guessing the votes are being brought in there.
You guessed correctly, Golston. We are actually at the ROV warehouse, and people are really excited here. They're ready to get these ballots processed. And I'm actually going to shift your attention right behind me to that opening where you can see that is where trucks will be coming in at, and people will begin boxing the paper ballots from there. It looks like some cars are slowly starting to pull up, and then right in front of that, there is a red screen that's tracking the equipment coming back. They say it's red now, but it will be changing colors as more equipment equipment comes. Over to the center of the warehouse, though, that's where you will see some machines and people sitting by them. Those machines are for counting the ballots from each precinct. Now, so far, officials say there are over 15,000 people who voted in person today and about 81,000 people who voted by mail. Now, we did speak to volunteers here. They tell us that they've been out here since about 6 a.m. and they're not planning on leaving until around 10 tonight. And we'll be out here. So sending it back to you for now.
Anahita, thank you. Also, a lot of votes being counted right now in Sacramento County. We have Denson Cortez live for us where that is all happening. Denson, what are you seeing there?
Same feeling here. I mean, workers have been at it since 7 in the morning, so they're going to keep going. Right now, we're at the Vote Center lab where they're processing all these ballots, and you can see them right now. They're checking the ballots. They're laying them out. This is the work that behind the scenes you don't get to see when you cast your ballot. But these are the hard workers that have been at it here throughout the county, and I want to show you the amount of more ballots that they will have to go through. Check out this cart here filled with them. They're going to go through them and verify and just make sure everyone filled out their ballot. There's no stains. There's no any liquids on them, because from there they'll go ahead and put them in and they'll take them to this specific room, the tabulation center room. And as you can see, if Tyler could squeeze the camera in there, they have their machines going, and this is where they're verifying those ballots and counting them throughout the whole Sacramento County. And what we do know is Sacramento County had already received more than 258,000 ballots. So this is going to go well into the night. These workers are hard at it. You're continuously looking through, reading, making sure everything is filled out. And as we get more of those results later into the night, we'll be sure to share with you guys. Back to you guys in the studio.
Denson, thank you. We want to go through some of those results. So let's show you some of the statewide races as these numbers are coming in from the Secretary of State's office. Starting with the race for governor, right at the top of the ticket, we've got Steve Hilton right now. Again, early returns, 45% reporting, but he is leading with about 26.5% of the vote. Just behind him, within a point, Javier Becerra, the Democrat, and Tom Steyer running in third place there with 20% of the vote. Fourth place, the Republican Chad Bianco, Riverside County Sheriff, is pretty distant fourth there.
All right, let's see what's happening right now. These are some of the other candidates there in the race for governor coming in behind Bianco. You have Katie Porter at 5%, Matt Mahan with her, and then we have Antonio Villaraigosa, who just conceded the race just a few minutes ago that we read you his statement. So
and we're not even seeing school superintendent Tony Thurmond, who's been considered one of the top 8, certainly not there in the hunt right now.
Let's go to Lieutenant Governor numbers if we can right now, and we can show you how this crowd is shaking out. Earlier on, we had Gloria Romero in first again with very, very early numbers coming in. Fiona Ma overtaking first place right now again in early numbers and early counting. Josh Friday, who is a member of the governor's cabinet. And then, Ashley, you were talking about Michael Tubbs. You said you were a little surprised that he wasn't in that top group, but it seems like he's risen, at least for now.
Yeah, at this point, again, with these early numbers, it looks like he at least leapfrogged the person who, I guess, had taken over the top 4. But yeah, this looks about, I mean, the polling showed that there would be like top 5 candidates. These 4 are within that.
All right, let's look at the Secretary of State numbers. And again, we've seen the incumbent Shirley Weber, the Associated Press predicting that she will advance to November. And the leading Republican here, Donald Wagner, who has really challenged her. He's the former mayor of Irvine, current Orange County supervisor, challenged her on the length of time that it takes to count the votes during these elections.
All right, we've got Curtis here right now because you're looking at Congressional District number 7. Longtime Congresswoman Doris Matsui there, being challenged by a young upstart, Maya Vang. Generational Democrat versus Democrat.
Very much so. And we have Doris Matsui, who has held the seat since her late husband passed away about 20 years ago. And now we have a newcomer, a city council member from Sacramento, who is trying to take the seat. This is the newly drawn District 7 right here. If we go on in, you can see that this district has changed a bit. It runs through Elk Grove, part of Sacramento, and up to El Dorado Hills, and it does cover some conservative areas toward Placerville. It also stretches down in into North Stockton. All right, so let's put up some results right here. And the results show that Doris Matsui right now has a healthy lead with 40% of the expected votes in, 33% of the vote she has at this point. And then Democrat Mai Vang, who is roughly half her age and trying to take the seat, she has 26% of the vote. And then in third there, we have Republican Zachariah Wooden. And so, again, the top two, when they're called, will advance to the November runoff. Now, let's tell you about another big race. It's not often the LA mayor's race is the national race that people are watching, but it is here. We have longtime politician Karen Bass, who's the incumbent, and then we have the reality star who's trying to take her seat. Why? Because he is upset about the way she handled the Palisades fire. He's upset about homelessness and upset about how she has run that city. And so the top two will go to that runoff. The city council member, Nithya Raman, has 20% of the vote right now. This has been very close in the polls, just off by a couple percentage points each. But at this point, with 46% of the expected vote in, Karen Bass is coming in number one, Spencer Pratt number two. We still have to wait to see who the top two will be that head to the November runoff. But Spencer Pratt earlier, he's been very busy on social media, but he posted he was praying inside a church earlier tonight, posted a picture of him down on his knees praying. So we'll have to see.
He reportedly said he's expecting a tsunami of votes, and I've seen a lot of Democrats saying, you know, marking this, bookmarking that to see if that ends up being the case. But I mean, ultimately, the question for LA voters is, I mean, really centering around the handling of those LA wildfires. So we'll see.
That has been the main issue. Really quickly, back to the 7th Congressional District and the challenge to Doris Matsui. We have seen similar challenges, Democrats versus Democrats across the state with these big generational challenges.
Exactly. David Hogg, Leaders We Deserve, was trying to upstart and energize younger candidates to challenge some of these older Nancy Pelosi, Doris Matsui, John Garamendis, and ultimately, I mean, for John Garamendi, he's obviously advancing to November, but Doris Matsui in this challenge, I mean, right now, based on the numbers that we see, it looks like maybe that ends up being a dem-on-dem for November.
And we should mention, speaking of age, that Zach Wooden, who is endorsed by our local Republican parties, is 25 years old. So when you talk about generational differences, he has just made the age cutoff to run for Congress. I mean, that's the U.S. Constitution sets 25 years as the threshold there.
And when we talk about the generational difference, District 4 is one we're watching too, which has the longtime incumbent Mike Thompson, the Democrat, and Eric Jones.
All right, we've got much more coming up on the other side of this break. Stay with us. Our primary election night in California coverage continues.